We were the fastest growing brand on TikTok in 2024. We've had almost 1.5 billion views, streams, tags with Neuro Gum.
You've obviously proven all of us that you can do this correctly. 20,000 retail stores. You hit $100 million valuation today.
There's going to be uncertainty always in the market. And I think if we're resilient enough, you'll find a way to get through it.
All right, guys, welcome back to Built in America. Today, I am chewing some gum on this podcast because this is my favorite gum out there. It is called Neuro Gum. It's an energy-focused gum that has changed my life today. I have the founder here, Ryan Chen, who pioneered this gum and has created a lot of virality around this on Joe Rogan, multiple different podcasts. He was on Shark Tank. Ryan, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks for having me on, Sam. Pleasure to be here.
Ryan, I want to know where the gum adventure all started, right? Not many people understand, your gum today, but I know you've taken a lot of virality of what you guys have built thus far. Walk us through how Ryan created Neuro Gum.
Yeah, it's not just Ryan, but it's Ryan and Kent. And we were best friends in college. We met, half a lifetime ago down at UC San Diego, and we were fast friends long before we had started the business together. But Kent was mixing supplements while he was training. I was a nationally ranked runner, and then got into a crazy accident that we'll probably dive into later. But long story short, we wanted to create supplements in a more accessible, approachable format like gum and mints, and we were crazy enough to try to do it. And here we are 10 years into the business, and now I'm talking to you. So it's been awesome.
So you and your partner Kent met about a decade ago, you said, right?
No, we met. So I met him half a lifetime ago. So about 18 years ago. And then we launched the company September 2015. So 10 years in September.
Okay. So you launched the company, you had this idea, you guys were probably experimenting with some product. And then how did you come about using theanine, nicotine into a gum, knowing that that is the remedy for, creating a gum that could build a company like this today?
Yeah. So no nicotine. Nicotine's an amazing compound for focus, but we don't use any nicotine in NeuroGum. But we were using caffeine and L-theanine for years while we were training. So Kent was training with the Olympic judo team out in Japan, fighting Muay Thai professionally. I was coming off a running career. And then when I was 19, I was in a really bad snowboarding accident. So when I was 19, sophomore in college, I was paralyzed from the waist down, going off like a big jump, fell about 30 feet on my back, and was told I would never walk again, and navigated my life post injury after several surgeries, several months of rehab, and kind of going back into school. Kent was giving me supplements when I decided, even though my running career is over, I could still stay in endurance by competing competitively in wheelchair racing. So did hand cycling, racing, and I was taking these supplements that Kent made in pill form that had caffeine and L-theanine, that had so much research and efficacy around its the science for focus. So we really didn't invent the combination of caffeine and L-theanine. In fact, L-theanine is the amino acid in green tea. So if you're drinking a black tea or a matcha, you're getting L-theanine, you're getting caffeine, but we're just combining it and putting it into a dose and then changing the medium from instead of tea or in pill form into gum and mint. So that was really the thesis. And NeuroGum was born with the idea of making an energy gum. Then we launched energy mints because people were chewing gum that shouldn't be chewing gum. They had dentures, they had fillings, and they're like, hey, I love the effects of energy and focus, but the gum's sticking to my dentures. And through customer feedback, we launched mints. And so we rebranded the company as Neuro, and then we do NeuroGum mints. And we realized that it's not just energy and focus. We could put, sleep, we could put memory, we could put calm, we could put multivitamins, we could put every type of supplement into a more approachable format like gum and mints, and effectively built this category over the last 10 years. And people are now realizing that you don't need to chew a piece of gum or mint just to freshen your breath. You can get something more out of it.
How do you go about when people make claims on products like this? I know there's some challenges along the way. I'm sure you probably faced that. I want to dive into that when you started creating your MVP of your first go around. I'm sure there's plenty of MVPs that you went along the way before you got to where this is today. Walk us through that a little bit when you're putting a claim out there right now, and you're on the back of your box. It says, refresh your mind and body, caffeine boost, L-theanine balance, vitamin B6 is for your brain, vitamin B12 is for your body. Tell us like how the effects of this, from a brain perspective, really catapults this category of NeuroGum.
Yeah, I think shout out to Jared Smith, who's a co-founder of RX Bar, but we kind of took a page out of RX Bar where, they put their ingredients in the front, right? 2 egg whites, 5 dates,
Yeah.
nuts. And it was just like, and no BS. And that was just like their whole packaging, and their brand really started to grow when they changed that packaging, put the things from the back of the packaging that you normally read in fine print, and you put it in bold and you put it in the front. So what we really wanted to do is we wanted to highlight the active ingredients that we put in. So energy and focus, we know caffeine and L-theanine work together synergistically. There's hundreds of articles on the National Institute of Health, a lot of peer-reviewed study, double-blind white paper studies that show the effectiveness. And everybody knows caffeine works, right? It's like the most consumed, compound in the world out. It's the most compound. Yeah, it's the most consumed drug with coffee, tea, and so we wanted to highlight that and just tell people exactly how much you're getting. And so for us with our regular strength NeuroGum, we have 40 milligrams of caffeine, which is like half a cup of coffee or half a Red Bull worth of caffeine. And then extra strength is 100.
That's one piece of gum.
One piece of gum or mint is, the regular strength is 40 milligrams of caffeine. And then extra strength that we just launched pretty recently, I think about a month ago, is 100 milligrams. It's about a cup and a half worth of coffee. It packs the punch. So I'll send you some after this call. I'll send you your address and you can give it a try. It's strong. It's really strong. And we did a cool partnership. We partnered with Mitchell Hooper. So shout out to Mitchell, who's the world's strongest man, 5 years running. He's beating Brian Shaw, the Mountain from Game of Thrones. He's like 23 for 23 on the podium, world's strongest man. And then he helped us launch the extra strength product, which is pretty cool.
There's a lot of energy drinks out there. There's a lot of caffeine out there and different ways to go consume that. You have created virality around this. Let's talk about that. You went on Shark Tank, and then you went, Joe Rogan has given you shout outs nonstop over the last few years. I want to talk about first your Shark Tank experience, and I want to then progress that into, how that's transitioned with Joe Rogan, partnerships that you built along the way.
Yeah. So, our PR company's been amazing because they were thinking about strategically, like, how do you get product in people's hands? And so we seeded Rogan November 2019. And I remember it was crickets. We didn't hear anything. And then come February 2020, so like a month before a global shutdown with COVID and the whole world kind of just came to a standstill, he gave us our first shout out and like sales skyrocketed. And then from there, we actually ended up airing Shark Tank April 2020. So that was like in the 1 month into like full US lockdown. And so we had these two compounding effects from 2020. And then we went through, supply chain like struggles like every other company in the world. There's a company that gave us a trademark lawsuit that we ended up winning and settling. But long story short, it was like a year and a half of us like trying to figure out and navigating how do you survive during, COVID, but at the same time handling two massive viral moments like Joe Rogan's mentioning you and Shark Tank. And that was about 5 years ago, right? So 2020, April, now we're sitting here, July 2025, and the business has really just kind of skyrocketed in the last 5 years. And I think these viral moments, we take these moments, and then, TikTok was another big catalyst. So we were the fastest growing brand on TikTok in 2024. Year to date, from 2024 till, into 2025, I think we've had almost 1.5 billion with the B views, streams, tags with Neuro Gum. And a lot of it is like creators talking about the product. We sampled a ton to, creatives, and they kind of repurpose that content, seeing like how Joe Rogan talks about it, how we talked about it on Shark Tank. And we just got these viral moments that kind of got another second life because, you wouldn't think that, mentions from 5 years ago, and Rogan's mentioned us luckily like many times over the last 5 years, like probably 25, 30 times in the last 5 years. So it's been amazing that, he's, the biggest podcast in the world is a fan of our brand. Andrew Schultz is also a fan of Neuro, which is awesome. We've gotten a lot of athlete sponsorships like Apollo Ono, like I said, Mitchell Hooper, world's strongest man. And it's just like a credibility card for us. And um, if I'm looking back on it, like would I have thought it would take 10 years to get here? Like, yes and no. Like it's been a long education process, but sampling is key. And I think we're going to a lot of these events now and at music festivals all around the country or nonprofits around the country. And there's an opportunity that we could sample free product. We'll do it because we view neuro, especially governments, as inherently very shareable as our currency. So if there's an opportunity where we can donate product, like, I'm from LA, Kent and I are born and raised in LA. And when the LA fires broke out, we donated like 20,000 packs of NeuroGum to the firefighters out there, battling out there every single day and night for like 24 hours. And this was a perfect product for them to, instead of slugging down energy drinks or coffee, you have something like this. So it's like we find different use cases where, you know, um, it can benefit people. And I think that's where it's kind of created a viral moment, even with just word of mouth.
You know what's crazy about a product like this is that your total addressable market is so massive in the sense that when you think of energy drinks or coffee, like there's only so many energy drinks or coffee you can go consume in a given period of time. But a piece of gum, like, it's kind of nice to go chew on it for a half hour and then put another one in your mouth, therefore after. And it's so easily accessible. I mean, it's a small little packet I can put in my pocket. I don't need to have something cold in my hand. And again, you can sample it to everyone, right? So your TAM is massive, and that gives you a massive competitive advantage. Ryan, I want to know about your background a little bit on your entrepreneurship background, on how you went to scale this from a go-to-market perspective. This is a massive undertaking of, taking millions of packs of gum and go distributing it probably now worldwide or nationally, wherever you're at today. And then I see you on TikTok, everyone's promoting it. You have all these affiliates and influencers. You're on the biggest podcast in the world. You have a D2C, probably a B2B side as well. Where's the go-to-market strategy? If you're going to go start this over again, how does someone know how to go expedite the process from 0 to 1?
Yeah. If I can compress the 0 to, 10-year journey, I mean, I don't know if I would change anything. The way that we did it, we launched D2C. 90% of the business is still online. So between Amazon, TikTok, our website, that's majority of the business. And that 10%, we're in Whole Foods nationwide. We're in CVS nationwide.
Oh, wow.
We're in Albertsons, Safeway. We're in Casey's, the third biggest convenience store in the country. There's so many different channels that we're experimenting in. And I would say for a brand like this, if it's a new category, it was easier for us then 10 years ago to introduce it online because like we would have got murdered on retail shelves if we didn't have that presence or anybody talking about it. Like it took 5 years into the business before we got that Shark Tank or Joe Rogan moment. So I think if we went retail first, I think we would have maybe fell flat, or we had to raise a lot of money to educate a consumer like that. So for us, we had the luxury to be able to, have a program and, a tool like Shopify to be able to build a D2C website. We had the ability that, Kent was a big Redditor. And so he contributed to Reddit, the subreddit, our nootropics, and he got the Reddit community to support our Indiegogo campaign when we first launched in September. So there's so many moments, like these tentpole moments throughout the first 5 years of the business that gave us that leverage. So if I were to do it all over again, I don't think I would really change anything. And it was like maybe 3 years into the business when we launched CVS. So we had a little bit more of a stable ground. We knew that we had repeat buyers on our website. And I think back to your TAM question, like total addressable market, like we knew that coffee drinkers are huge. We know that energy drink market is like 85 billion in the US and growing. It's like, if we could even take 1% of that, or people who want to cut down on coffee consumption because like they'll never give up their morning cup of coffee because that's part of their culture, their ritual. But instead of the third or fourth cup of coffee in the afternoon, maybe we could substitute it for NeuroGum. Or people who are trying to reduce their sugar consumption from energy drinks and substitute with Neuro. Like we surveyed thousands of our consumers, and 89% drink coffee or energy drinks. So it's like NeuroGum's like not like it's a supplement to them, right? It's an ability, like you said. So you don't want to have a lukewarm cup of coffee, a hot coffee that turned lukewarm, or iced coffee that gets watery with ice. Like you have something like this just in your back pocket, and we realize our place for the consumer. And when we introduce something like sleep, our sleep product is incredible. We have a melt away technology that we use from a pharmaceutical company that dissolves in your mouth within 30 seconds, and you're getting that melatonin dose precisely. with a botanical blend that helps you stay asleep. And like we've put, we don't put out a lot of products. It takes us like a year plus to do the R&D and do stabilization studies, get the flavor right, get consumer feedback. So, our portfolio of brands, like when we launch a product, um, it's probably years in the making in the background that people don't know about. So, I guess that if that answers your question, I would stick with the D2C and then go to retail, unless it's the category that the consumers are familiar with. Like if we were to launch an energy drink brand, I don't need to educate somebody about an energy drink company. Everybody knows what that is. Plus, it's expensive to ship liquid, so maybe retail first is the right strategy. But for us, time and time again, I would go back into the how we did things with D2C.
Yeah, you definitely launched a product where you had to go educate your consumers. And then you've proven all of us that you can do this correctly. 20,000 retail stores. You've hit $100 million valuation today. I think it's probably relatively low based off where you guys are going in the future.
Yeah.
Talk to me about some of the capital raising you've done to get to this valuation and get you guys to scale. Who are some of the people that you partnered with? If you're allowed to share that.
Yeah. First 2 years of the business, we completely bootstrapped, right? It was like, me and Kent, pulling our funds together, our parents, friends, and family kind of helped get us to that first 2-year mark. But, it wasn't pretty. Like, I was working full time at Hulu. Kent was working at Sony Music. And, our first R&D run was I think $30,000, and we raised like 30 plus thousand on Indigo to cover that. And so we learned the entire business from, the bottom up, because we had the first 4,000 pounds of gum shipped to Kent's apartment, and we shipped a year's worth of product from Kent's apartment. So we understood the fulfillment side of things. We understood customer service, because the customer service phone number was Kent's cell phone number.
Love that.
And it was just like, we did everything. We did every role possible. So we understood when we were building the team, like how difficult it is. And I think customer service is one of those things where it's so difficult, because it's like you're dealing with, customers who want the product today, and you want customers that have a million questions about the product, and rightfully so. They want to know exactly what's in it, because they've never tried it before. So we learned that process, and then 2 years in, we got an investment from BAM. The founder was Brian Lee, who started LegalZoom. He started Honest Company with Jessica Alba, Shoedazzle with Kim Kardashian. He's like, one of the most epic serial entrepreneurs. So shout out to Brian. He was our first check, and Katie Sue, who is now an executive in marketing, and we worked together at Hulu. And then, we kind of got a lot of like small angel checks from like year 2 to year 7. And that's like Kevin Lin, the co-founder of Twitch, Jared Smith, the co-founder of RX Bar, James Brennan, the co-founder of Sujet. Like we had all these, Apollo Ono, Steve Aoki. We've had all these epic investors, but we raised barely, I think, 1.5 million in the first 7 years of the business. So we were very bootstrapped. And it was only like about 2.5, 3 years ago when we raised like an actual strategic round from like a Fortune 50 company. And that's really where things started to take off, and like things were already growing, but it was like, okay, now we have the confidence that if we raise a larger round, how to deploy that capital. So the first 8 years of the business, it was, first seven and a half years of the business, we only raised 1.6 million total. And it was, would I do that again? Like maybe, and if I were to tell me and Kent, our younger selves, maybe it would have been better to raise a little bit of money earlier, because I think we tried to do too much with too little in the beginning. But on the flip side, like it taught us how to be scrappy and lean and think of like, okay, like let's not waste resources. So there's a balance between like, speed to market, and capital helps you capital gives you optionality, but it affords you the ability to make more mistakes and learn quickly.
As you understand valuation in your early stages of building this company, right? Your first
didn't.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think we did. Yeah.
That's where a lot of people get it wrong, right? And especially if this is maybe your first time founder and you left Hulu to come build this, you're raising $1.5 million. People will say, hey, right, you have nothing here, just a pack of gum. You're not worth much. And then maybe you gave away 20, 30, 40% of the time, who knows, right? And with that can cause
we did it in tranches. So the first 200,000 we raised, 2 years into the business. And then we didn't raise the other 1.3 million all at once. It was like in different tranches at different valuations. So we were able to preserve the cap table very well. And I think Kent and I did in that sense. We have a very, very, very clean cap table, all things considered, given it's been a 10-year journey. And so like for us, like I said, we only raised 200,000 that first in that after year two. And I think for me, my advice to founders is like, don't raise too little, because then like you're going to have to spend more time fundraising, but raise right just enough to where you think you're going to get to the next milestone. And I've seen a lot of CPG brands in the last 10 years raise too much capital. So I've been seeing, CPG brands, I'm not going to name anybody, but like raising 30, 40, $50 million on a crazy valuation, but they couldn't like deploy that capital because they were just like, it was markets were ripe. This was before COVID. Even during COVID, like, so valuations are sky high. So people are raising a lot of capital, and interest rates were effectively zero, right? So people were getting a lot of free money, but then like they didn't have the product distribution yet. They were just like buying their way through distribution or buying their way through acquisition. So I'm glad that we raised the capital that we did, and all in all, like we raised less, like around $10 million total, right, to get to where we are today. And I've seen companies do it with far less, but then I've seen a lot of companies raise a lot more money that aren't around anymore. So just because you can raise money, it doesn't mean that you have to or you should. I think it's being selective in who your investors are and picking the right people that are going to go to bat for you.
Ryan, tell me a little bit about like the facility and how you guys do this at scale. So what does the operation look like? I know you guys first started it shipping things at Kent's house. You guys were customer service. Obviously, you now have probably a big team that's out of Vegas, I assume now. Tell me how the operation looks like, how you go manufacture millions of these and deliver them at scale.
That's the hard. So in the beginning, it's easy because then I could just write a PO, like do some basic line forecasting in Excel. But now where we are today, I would say there's a big inflection point. Like when it's like 25 to 30 million plus in revenue, that's really where like, you have product market fit, but it's a supply chain exercise. And I think operations and supply chain is like the most critical thing for the business to keep going, because now you have demand. If you're not forecasting right, you can either run out of cash because you got a liquidity crunch because you order too much inventory, or you're not ordering enough inventory to where like customers like, you know what, I'm not getting this product in time. Like, and we've had issues with being sold out all the time in 2024. So we had those growing pains last year and during COVID. But going back to that, it's like, how do you get back to the status to where you're ordering the right amount? I'd say like from a 30 to $100 million like revenue business and beyond, it's all about supply chain, and that's the different scale. So we got our own warehouse just about like 2.5 years ago, and that was a big difference because now we control our own fate. Before we were using 3PL. So basically what a 3PL is like you get your inventory and somebody else ships it on your behalf, right? And they're not just shipping your product, they're shipping other brands and all this stuff, and things can get mixed, things can get lost. Now that we have our own warehouse, we know exactly where the inventory is. We know that we can do customization. So somebody who buys energy product, we might be able to throw them a free sample of sleep because they might not know that they need it, or they might not know that they would like it. So like all these customizations that you can do when you have your own warehouse is great. And I would say that if you're a business doing even maybe over 10 million, that might be a good time to look at getting a small square footage at 5,000, 10,000 square feet, and maybe trying to control a little bit more of your destiny.
Yeah. I mean, I think these 3PLs out there don't have the same vested interest as you, right? They're, if things go wrong, there's a oopsie, it's just an oopsie for them. But
yeah,
they don't understand.
We went through like 4 or 5 3PLs in the first like 7, 8 years of the business. And I can confidently say I've never had one that was like, man, they made no mistakes. Or some were cheap, but made a lot of mistakes, and some were expensive and still made a lot of mistakes. So until we moved to our own warehouse, like that's when we started to see a reduction in order errors. I think it's just, like you just said, Sam, it's like the attention to detail is a little bit different and the vested interest.
Ryan, you launched a new limited edition with Steve Aoki. We all know Steve Aoki.
Yeah.
He throws cakes at people in big crowds, smashes them in the face, and now he's partnered with NeuroGum. Mm-hmm. Tell me the correlation, how that all happened, and where's the limelight in that?
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Steve. He's a really good friend of ours. We met him about 8 years ago when we were having NeuroGum in like its OG packaging. We had some samples in a Ziploc bag, and shout out to Steve because he blindly took some product out of a Ziploc bag, and he fell in love with it. He was like, I feel it, I understand it. I don't want to drink Red Bull. I don't want to drink energy drinks. This is a great alternative. And we were friends for many years. And a couple of years ago, he ended up becoming a personal investor into the brand through his AOP Labs fund. And we came up with this collaboration where we wanted to do something more for his charity. So he has AOP Foundation, which is a nonprofit 501(c) that raises money and awareness for mental health and brain research. And his favorite flavor is strawberry, and he's known for, like you said, throwing cakes.
Strawberry cakes.
We spent about a year doing R&D to try to get that flavor right. But we have like basically a version of our energy and focus product in strawberry cake form that, like you said, launched July 8th. So we're really excited about that partnership. Steve's also is launching his album, which is out. So tune into his new album as well.
That's cool. Look, you've done so well with launching partnerships with the biggest names. I want to dive into your partnership with Ken. Many people don't understand how building a big business like you've done thus far and having a partner along the way is massively beneficial for the long run, right? That can either go one of two ways, either incredibly well or absolutely horrible. There's no like messy middle, right? Or else you just don't get any level of scale. Obviously, you guys have a successful remedy between your partnership. What do you think created that?
I think honestly, the foundation of our friendship came as a critical part of this whole success. And we're, like I said, we were friends long before we started this company together, and we made a vow and a promise to each other that our friendship comes first. And we also knew that we had different skill sets. Like we are very left brain, right brain. Like Kent's the creative. He is like he's an executor. I'm more analytical. I'm more like, a preservation mindset. Kent's more of a growth mindset. And I think that's like, it's changing a little bit for me now as I move more into a partnership role and doing deal making, business development. But we both complement each other in different ways. But I think the most important thing is that we trust each other's decision. And at the end of the day, like we've never yelled at each other, which is, we'll disagree on certain things and we'll talk it through. We'll talk it through with the rest of the team. But at the end of the day, like the company starts with us. And I think our friendship and the way that we treat each other and love each other. I mean, I was just in Japan for a week for Ken's bachelor party, literally 2 weeks ago, and we were with 17 of our best friends. Like we hang out outside of work and we're able to talk about things outside of work. And even when we're hanging out, we'll think about things at work and we'll bring up some stuff, but we're able to unplug. And I think that's really important. And I think, I wouldn't be able to do this on my own. I think it's really difficult to be a solo founder. And so, that being said, partnerships are really important, but relationships is everything and everything in business. So like, the partnership that we have with Steve, it's like, it's a give and take. It's like, he helps us out. We think about different ways that we can help his charity or different causes that are important to him. We got that really cool partnership with Yuki, the F1 driver, and he has a lot of, different passions too. And he has nonprofits. So like, we try to figure out a way where our business can thrive, where it's not just us pulling it's not a one-way relationship. We always try to look at a relationship and, it's a give and take.
Right. When we start any company, we always start in the premise for the most part on getting a dream outcome, right? So we start to build a business. We're like, I want to go get this to $100 million. I want to get this to $1 billion, whatever it may be. And that is a uncontrollable variable, right? And I've asked this question a few times in this pod, and it does make you think a little bit. And I think if you were to create an equation today, and I know you're also the CFO and the guy doing the line forecasting on your business, you've done a lot of that. If you have a uncontrollable variable, which is the outcome of the business, but then you have two controllable variables, two things that you can control in the business, what do you think those two very important things are that you can control in order to yield the uncontrollable outcome?
Man, that's a really, really good question. I would say one is resilience, if that counts, because there's going to be uncertainty always in the market. Like no one knew that COVID was going to happen. No one's going to know how to navigate through different tariffs. Like there's all these things. And I think if we're resilient enough, you'll find a way to get through it. So I think that's one, especially being 10 years in, like there's been so many ups and downs in the business. And two, after resilience, I would say having fun. You can't do something in the long term without actually, being able to joke around and poke fun at things. If you're always serious all the time, man, I don't think anybody's going to want to work for that type of environment or that type of culture. So even when shit hits the fan, it's like how do you laugh about it? How do you take that situation, fix it, but then like be able to smile about it at the end of the day. And it's really hard to do. But I think those things. I think it's like if you're not having fun, it's like you could build $100 million, $1 billion company. It's like, dude, like you just wasted all that time and then you were miserable. Like you got to have fun in the journey.
100%. You heard it live here, guys. If you have fun and you're resilient, you can build $100 million valuation company right then and there, right? I really like,
And a lot of luck. I think
and a lot of luck, right? And
Yeah.
luck is just where hard work meets opportunity, right? And the reason why I asked that question, I think if you see how modern society works today, Ryan, I'm sure there's a lot of people come up to you and you're recently recognized as an EY Entrepreneur of the Year. And people are like, hey, Ryan, how can I be like you, right? I want to go build $100 million valuation company. And they're so focused on this $100 million valuation, right? They want to just be Ryan and be the outcome. And they forget the journey, how you got there. And they just look at you on top of Mount Everest. And the rationale that I ask this is I think that people lose sight of what's really important here. And I think the two things that I feel are very important that you can't control is the people and the opportunity. And I think if you just have the right people in the right vertical and you continue to compound in those sectors, your outcome will yield a strong dividend, right? And I'm no mathematician, but I'd like to simplify things in a way that a lot of us can understand. I mean, I think, someone like yourself, and we've had very successful founders come on this podcast, really show how you guys got to these massive valuations or massive revenue metrics. But it becomes undermined of how you guys actually got there because there's so much along the way that people just don't get to see. If you were to point out one thing that was the hardest part about NeuroGum throughout the last 10 years, what would that be?
The hardest thing is for us is just education, right? Like it's one thing to be able to tell people about, hey, here's this gum that can, help you focus a little bit more, give you a little bit of caffeine boost. People can conceptually understand it, but unless they tried, it's really hard. So I think that was a big challenge, is like trying to advertise to a first time buyer online to just hear a Rogan shout out or a Shark Tank to actually spend their $24, to put out their credit card to do it. And I think that's a big challenge. That's why I think for us, like we want to sample to as many people as possible for them to try and be like, okay, now I get it.
I want to give you a shout out for something really quick. There's a lot of energy caffeine products like I talked about. You've seen a 5-hour energy at a store, right? You look at that branding. You go to the gas station, you see a pill that says, it's a caffeine pill. And the stigma around those is like, that looks very unhealthy. And it looks like your heart's about to fall out of your chest when you go take one of those, right?
Yeah.
And you see like pills that say like Gorilla Mind if it's for erectile dysfunction. And it's like, it just looks very aggressive. You did something very unique where I just look at this color and it's somewhat trustworthy and it's calming. And you also made the packaging in a sense that it's egalitarian, it's echelon. It's in a way where it looks like it's expensive, but it's affordable at the same time. And it's almost like medical grade. I want to know how you came up with the packaging and the design in order to build trust with people like myself who, I didn't know you before this pod, but I knew about the product, right? And I trust the product. And yes, there's probably a lot of other gums out there that are trying to emulate what you're doing, but you're one of the first to market to do this at scale. And I think it has a lot to do with this design, just like RX Bar did it really well with theirs. I want to know the secret sauce here.
Man, I think marketing is a beautiful thing because it combines psychology and aesthetics, right? And you said it beautifully. Like, how do you create a single glimpse, like a split second for somebody to look at something and feel like, oh, I like that, right? I trust it. I don't know what it is, but I trust it. And I think it's, like I said, putting the ingredients out in the front. It's putting like, soft colors that are easier on your eyes, and having an ingredient label that people can read and pronounce. I think those are some critical components. But I think what a lot of energy drinks do, so you look at Monster, Rockstar, Red Bull, it's like all extreme sports, right? People jumping off a cliff, Monster, like race car drivers, like, smashing cars. It's this intense thing. And I think we took a step back and we're like, hey, we just want a product that like both men and women can take. And I think when you look at the energy drink market, it's majority men. And I think that's what
Aggressive.
Celsius and Alani Nu have done a good job because they capture more of the female demographic.
Yes. Yes.
Our sales are actually about like 57% male, 43% female. So we're
Wow.
not quite even, but we're pretty even compared to like when we compare to energy drinks. And that's a proud stat. And I would love to get it exactly 50-50 one day. And that'll never happen, but I want to trend toward where it's like, it's approachable for everybody. And that was always our goal. We didn't want to alienate a certain group just because like, hey, this is a product that we branded to a specific way. Like we had it as neutral as possible. So we had that in mind when we were working with our design team, our creative team. And I think we have an incredible in-house design team because we continuously iterate the packaging. And for better or worse, like we're always going through like packaging overhauls, but it's like all going toward this universal like thesis of like we want to unify and have a place for everything. So now having like, the blue that you just put up right here, and then we have the green for spearmint, the darker like marine blue for like winter green. And then we have our extra strength, which is a darker shade of each one. That's like, so that there's all these levels to not just the marketing, but packaging. And I think it's a beautiful thing. I don't understand it because my brain doesn't work that way. I'm thinking much more in a mathematical, analytical way. But when I see something, to your point, you feel good about it.
Yeah.
And I think it's difficult to do, but shout out to the brands that do it. And I feel honored with what you said. If that's how you feel, that's exactly what our goal was.
You nailed it, man. Another thing I want to hit on too is when I go build a business, or I'm in the space of acquisitions as well, where I go buy a company, I have this model of like who, not how. So I'm always like trying to be the least smartest guy in the room. And there's always a who trying to solve a problem. Today I actually like make a joke that I don't have a to-do list. I have a to-who list, right? So if I need to get shit done, who's going to help solve for that, right? Who are some people, whether it's advisors, mentors, people you brought along the way that have been a massive inflection point throughout this journey? When I go around building a company, I look at how do I go build the Mount Rushmore of the business. So if I'm going to go build, a neuro energy gum, I'm going to be the first person I'm going to call is Ryan, right? If I'm going to go build an HVAC business, who's built $200 million HVAC business? And then bring them on my board, bring them on my team, and give them an opportunity big enough that they want to come mentor me along the way. I want to know who is that for you.
Yeah. I mean, shout out to Daniel Lubetsky. He's founder of Kind Bar. He was our guest judge on Shark Tank, over 5 years ago. And he saved our business. And I don't think we'll have enough time to mention it on this podcast. But when we were running into trouble with like a trademark suit from a drink company, he stepped in and he defended us and he did what was right. Like his moral compass is so strong. And we were like, hey, can you want advisory share? Like we would love to. And he's like, Ryan, I look at as his friends. I just want to see you guys win. And that was just such a beautiful thing. I'm like, man, this guy just sold Kind for $5.1 billion to Mars Wrigley. He's taking time to help mentor these two young entrepreneurs that like were on the verge of losing their business. And it shows a lot about his character. And I don't think I would be here talking to you about that story if it weren't for him. And he was so gracious to help us for 18 months navigating through that process. But it taught us a lot about, paying it forward. It taught us a lot about like this entrepreneurial spirit and this idea of like giving back. And he's been a mentor from us from that moment on. And we're fortunate we get to see him basically once a year at Expo West, but we'll chime in time and time again. He started a nonprofit called Frontline Impact Initiative. And it started during COVID when, doctors and nurses were working around the clock and they weren't getting the necessary supplies because the whole world was shut down. So he stepped in donating waters, Kind bars, snacks, and he found all these brands that were willing to donate. And at that time, we donated about like 100,000 packs of NeuroGum to doctors and nurses. And it was perfect because they're double masked. They're not going to take off 2 masks, take a sip of an energy drink or coffee. And that's when NeuroGum came in and we're like, wow, this is actually a perfect use case. And I think to see how he would find a problem and find a solution to that problem, like almost in real time, was amazing. And I think it's just a testament to his entrepreneurial spirit. And it's if we could be just a fraction of what Daniel has done to the community, I think it'll be a huge success for me and Kent. And yeah, I just talked to him like a couple weeks ago, and he's now the permanent judge on Shark Tank, which is really cool.
Yeah, definitely one of my favorite people on Shark Tank. I think it's really hard to say no to him.
Real one.
Yeah, he's a real one. I mean, Cuban's the biggest favorite. I know Cuban's off now as of probably last season. It was his final season, but he's someone that has such unique energy that draws people to him. That makes him want to do a deal with you guys. Did he invest in you guys by chance?
No, he passed, but he had mentioned that he wanted to stay in touch, and he said that we would cross. He had a feeling we'd cross paths, and he was right. We needed help, and he was true to his word. But it was like the best case scenario.
Ryan, who's someone or an organization that you feel you're paying forward to today? I think as someone who's been in your level of success, and like I said earlier, you're recognized as EY Entrepreneur of the Year. You've helped a ton of philanthropy at this point, from police officers in the fires to first responders during COVID. As someone who builds a company like yours and can give back to a ton of people, who are some of the people that you want to recognize today?
Our biggest one is definitely PADI Aware. So PADI is the largest scuba diving organization in the world. Kent and I came up with the idea for NeuroGum on a scuba diving trip in 2013.
Nice.
And that full circle moment was when PADI heard about our story. We got connected with the global head of PR, so Sam Pearson. And yeah, it was amazing. We got connected with them. They helped tell that story, and we donated, at this point, probably close to $500,000 to their nonprofit for ocean conservation and ocean cleanup. So that's a charity that we'll continue to support. And yeah, PADI was great for me too, because it was like, after my injury, I thought that a lot of the things in my life were going to be closed off, but scuba diving is very accessible. And we did that, and it's been an incredible journey. So we have a very deep partnership with them.
As a CFO of the company of a level of your scale, what do you feel is the number one thing and metric that you want to look at to continue to grow this business?
Also, one more shout out, like Julie too. So Julie and Sam from PADI, they were rock stars to even give us that chance and hear our story. But going back to your questions, can you repeat that one time?
As a CFO of the company, what's the biggest metric that you really stay true to? Like, what's very important to you as a CFO? And as you're trying to go scale this business, you're toggling between revenue, EBITDA, net free cash flow, and trying to manage all those metrics at the same time while hitting return profile back to investors, getting to a level of scale. Talk to me about where you're at in the journey today and how you view the company as a CFO.
I mean, acquisition is always really important, but acquisition would mean nothing if people don't come back, right? So by that principle, I would say retention and repeat buyers are really important. Like, you want to get a customer that keeps coming back over and over again. And we have customers that have been around for 10 years. And those are the ones that are so important to you. And you want to listen to them. Because like, if you have to acquire a new customer and they buy it one time and they never buy it again, it's really hard to build a legacy or sustainable business. So I would say that number one metric is, what's that repeat customer rate? What's that retention? What are we doing to keep customers engaged, to listen to their feedback, and continue to innovate? Like I said, with Neuro Mints, like, we didn't think about making a formulation with mints, but when people said that they couldn't physically chew the gum, that's really where we were like, okay, we got to step in and make some changes.
Ryan, it's 2030, July 2nd. Where's NeuroGum today?
Oh man. I think by 2030, we'll definitely be in a lot of international countries. We'll may or may not probably get acquired by that time. But right now we're having a lot of fun doing it. So I wouldn't change anything for the world. I just want to continue to grow, but grow in the right way, and continue to foster the team, make sure that people on the team are engaged and they're happy with their careers.
Ryan, you got one of my favorite products of all time. I appreciate the time that you put on this pod. Where can more people find about you and your journey, and then also NeuroGum?
I think we tell a lot of our stories through, these awesome podcasts like you have, Sam. So that's kind of like the personal side of things. But in terms of the brand, just neurogum.com. Our social media is at NeuroGum. Follow us on like TikTok or Instagram, and we'll post a lot of things. We highlight a lot of our employees from social media, warehouse, all that stuff. So we like to have fun and not take ourselves too seriously. So those are good places to start.
There you go. That's the pod. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Sam.